Welcome to the Courting Happiness podcast. This is a space where self-care becomes part of your day. A space where you learn evidence-based strategies to help your life, share it with those you love, and cultivate well-being at work. I'm your host, Dr. Kortni Alston. I'm a former news director, television reporter turned happiness scholar, TEDx speaker, and transformational trainer. I also understand hardships. While working my dream job in television, I lived a nightmare suddenly becoming a young widow after 86 days of marriage. I became committed to learning more about resilience, healing, and happiness. This is how I discovered my area of research, which is positive psychology. Now I'm living my calling of training individuals and organizations on happiness. And my new chapter begins with being happily engaged. The Courting and Courting Happiness is about a true courtship. I like to say commitment with happiness. The K in courting stands for the vulnerability of sharing my story, inspirational interviews with phenomenal people, the infusion of positive psychology, and so much more. You'll learn how to commit to your well-being one episode at a time. I hope you subscribe and share. So, are you ready? Let's get started. Welcome to episode 98. I'm Dr. Kortni Alston. I am so happy that you're here. Thank you so much for listening. Well, for those of you who are regularly listening to the Courting Happiness podcast, you know, one of my favorite topics happens to be gratitude. It's actually my character strength, which I like to call my superpower. And I love it because I love to leverage it to help me remain present, focus on the good in my world. And it really reminds me about all that I have. And it appears that gratitude can help us manage stress at work. I love that. And Jill Schulte published a story about the topic for the Greater Good Science Center, one of our favorite places. And her headline asked the question, can gratitude reduce your stress at work? So her article was based on a new study by Yaming Gu, Joseph Ocampo, Sarah Algu, and Christopher Ovas, and examine how gratitude expressions improve teammates' cardiovascular stress responses. So the researchers paired up with university suitemates that were acquainted but not close. They felt that this would be really a great way to assess the kind of relationships that people would have at work, you know, better known as loose ties. So one student in each dyad was designed, or designated, I should say, as an expressor, and the other was a receiver. And some expressors told to start a conversation by sharing something about their day, and others sharing something that they appreciated about their partner. Now, some gratitude expressors appreciated small things like how a partner ran an errand for them, you know, at one time. And the others appreciated bigger things like how a partner switched around a class schedule to accommodate them. So later, the researchers monitored their cardiovascular responses, and they did this by having them complete tasks collaboratively, like a bicycle design, creating a market plan, and a sales pitch. And they had to do this in 6 minutes, all in 6 minutes. And they were given 3 minutes to pitch their product to evaluators individually. So how did gratitude affect their stress? Well, those in the gratitude dyads had superior stress profiles, with their hearts pumping out more blood, and their, in terms of allowing them to have more oxygen to reach their brains and their bodies, and a really helpful profile for stressful challenges. Now, those in the other condition, where they were shared something about their day, exhibited more robust threats of responses under pressure, and suggesting that they had worse profiles with coping with stress. So the researchers believe that this could help us in terms of better coping with stress at work. and co-author Christopher Ovas, director of the University of California, San Diego's Empathy and Emotion Lab, had a lot to say about this. And I really treasure what Christopher shared. So Christopher says this: when people have to perform in front of others, like when they have to pitch ideas to their boss or interview for a job, some people rise to the challenge and have an efficient cardiovascular response, while others don't, he says. Now, quote, in our study, he mentions, during the collaborative task, gratitude seemed to serve as a buffer. Gratitude seemed to serve as a buffer against threat responses, and it amplified a person's challenge response during an individual performance task. So gratitude makes people remember, really, our social resources, and it boosts our self-confidence, which can really handle and help us manage our stress. Christopher also says this: expressing gratitude can psychologically buffer us against the threatening effects of social evaluation by reminding us that we are valued by others. Ooh, that is really powerful. It can act as a buffer against threatening effects of social evaluation by reminding us we are valued by others. So I love this study because it really creates a great starting point in terms of us having even more conversations about how we're going to incorporate different evidence-based strategies as it relates to positive psychology in business. And I love this because if you're a manager and you're thinking about how can I go about helping my team in terms of stress, how can I really go about serving them? And I love this because it really teaches us how can we infuse gratitude in our workplace. So if you're a manager, I want you to think about that question. How can you infuse gratitude in your workplace? It's interesting because a couple of years ago, before the pandemic, I remember talking to a young woman. And of course, some of you may know, I'm a former television reporter and news director turned happiness scholar. So I worked in newsrooms all across the country. And I also help journalists as it relates to mental health and workplace well-being. And so I was having a conversation a couple of years ago with a young woman who was an anchor at a station. And she was telling me about how in her newsroom, how they had a gratitude wall, I believe she referred to it as. And I thought, wow, this is interesting to have like a gratitude. And I think it was like almost like a bulletin board kind of thing. And I thought, this is amazing. And I say that because being part of the International Positive Psychology Association, I remember a couple of years ago, again, before COVID, before the pandemic, and I remember attending a conference when I was working on my PhD at the University of Florida. And the convention for IPPA, better known as International Positive Psychology Association, was in Orlando. So very convenient for me at the time as a PhD student. And one of the things that I loved so much that I never have ever witnessed before in a conference, never. IPPA, International Positive Psychology Association, we had a gratitude wall at the conference. At the conference was a gratitude wall. And to this day, it inspires me. And by the way, I celebrated my 6-year anniversary of graduating with my PhD. I graduated in 2016. So we're probably talking about something that happened maybe around 2015, maybe 2014. And I still treasure it. It was something about walking past that gratitude wall, taking a look at the fact that I believe the wall even mentioned, different panelists. So I'm assuming that maybe if you valued a certain panel, you could certainly share gratitude. But it has inspired me so much about how to incorporate more gratitude walls in our daily lives. So, this article and this study says a lot to me. And I hope it speaks to you in terms of the importance and the value of creating and cultivating and infusing gratitude in your workplace. And remember, it's about starting where you are, evaluating what you need, and thinking about how it seamlessly fits in your organization. As I mentioned about the young woman who's an anchor at that station. Now she's actually at another station, but when she was at that station, and the fact that they had that practice at work and how life-changing it was, and particularly for her. What can you incorporate that can be life-changing as a manager that infuses positive psychology, but it focuses in as it relates to gratitude? Gratitude. What can we do in terms of incorporating more gratitude in the workplace? And if you're listening and you're simply looking for ways to help you as an individual with workplace stress, I say begin with gratitude. Begin with gratitude. And think about what you're grateful for. And also think about, as I mentioned earlier, the good in your world. What I love so much about gratitude, I will admit, is that it allows me to focus in on what I have, not what I don't have. Not what I don't have. No. It allows me to take, I love to call it positive inventory of all the wonderful things in my life, all the wonderful people in my life, all the wonderful things that I'm grateful for. And it allows me to be present, to really be present, and not focusing in on what I don't have, but all of the beauty and blessings of what I do have. So begin to think about how you're going to incorporate gratitude at work. I will say I shared the example of the gratitude bulletin, and I shared the example of the gratitude wall. And I've often shared on this podcast the value of the benefits, the scientific benefits of gratitude, how I incorporated a gratitude jar in my life, and how my fiance actually gave me the greatest gift when we were in a long distance relationship before we moved in together here in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. He actually was inspired by the work that I was doing in terms of my gratitude jar. He created a gratitude jar for me as a gift. And inside, he worked on for about maybe a few weeks, maybe even a month, all the things he was grateful for as it related to our relationship, all the things he was grateful for as it related to me. I never in my life would have even thought of that idea. And I'm a happiness scholar. He taught me something. And I think that's the value in regards to when we go into any situation and believe in partnership, because we can always learn from each other. And I am grateful for that. And I am certainly grateful for you. So I hope gratitude really inspires you. You know, like Oprah has one of her favorite things, gratitude. Gratitude is Dr. Kortni's favorite thing. I love all things gratitude. But I want you to remember this as you're focusing in on how to manage stress for yourself and for your team. Begin to think about what activities speak to the culture, speak to your organization that can really help serve your team and really, in short, also serve you. Remember that your well-being is your most important job. Thank you so much for listening. Let's continue this conversation online. Email us at podcast@drkortnialston.com. That's podcast@drkortnialston.com. courtinghappiness.com. Join us on Instagram at Courting Happiness. Don't forget, that's courting with a K. Also, I hope you join our private Facebook community. You can find us at Courting Happiness Podcast Community. Our private Facebook group is a safe haven to share, meet more people looking to build positive relationships, focus on well-being, and create a happier life. Now, are you ready to spread happiness? We hope you subscribe and share this podcast with your family, friends, coworkers, and all the important people in your world. We release a new episode every Thursday. Congratulations on your continued commitment to your courting happiness journey. Thank you so much for listening. We want you to be well, be happier, and be kinder to yourself. We can't wait to see you next week.